Several years ago, I got sick, and I spent a lot of time while I was sick thinking about things that were really important to me. And I had worked in African development early on in my career when I first got out of graduate school. Had spent time running projects in the US and in African countries for a nonprofit based in Washington, D.C., and I thought a lot about how much I enjoyed that work. And I found the Grow movement by doing a search on the internet. I was just spending time searching around, looking for organizations that I might be able to volunteer with, and I came across the Grow movement through that search. And I thought it was a really good fit, both with being able to use a lot of the skills that I've developed working with entrepreneurs and with startups, helping them launch their business as a technology marketing executive, and then also pairing it up with my experience actually working in Africa early on in my career. The last entrepreneur that I worked with was part of the Uganda 600 project, and her name was Mana Nyakatura, and she was a clothing designer, small business clothing designer based in outside of Uganda, and she was a single mom. She had two girls, two children, and she was looking for basic help trying to grow her business. And we worked on two different aspects of her business. Probably the most important was helping her develop some very basic bookkeeping skills. Like a lot of small entrepreneurs in Uganda and Malawi, the countries that Grow Movement works in, oftentimes these entrepreneurs mix their personal and their business expenses, and they often don't really have a good idea of how profitable or not profitable their business is. So we spent some time early on really helping her establish a very simple system for tracking her income and her expenses, and that was really super beneficial to her, for her to have an idea of how much money she really was making or wasn't making. So that was kind of the first piece that we worked on. And then we worked on helping her better market her business and expand her audience. She had both ready-made clothes that she sold, but her real expertise was having people come by, take review a lookbook that she had, and say, I want that skirt or that dress or this outfit or that outfit, and I'd like you to make it with this particular kind of material. And then she would custom design the outfit for the person, or oftentimes the entire family, for special events. A lot of times families want to have an outfit where they're all kind of matching. So she did a lot of that kind of work, but she needed to expand her audience. And so we did a couple of things. We developed a postcard that she could use to pass out at her church and in various locations around the community. And then we also helped her develop a Facebook page where she could post pictures of of people, in her customers, in various outfits that she had made for them. And the Facebook page in particular was important because she wanted to try to focus on the 18 to 25 demographic, young women in particular, who at this point in time are really into kind of African wear. And so she saw that as a really good avenue for getting in front of that audience, because they oftentimes are on Facebook. I think that my ability to support a Grow Movement entrepreneur was maybe a little bit easier than some of the other volunteer consultants, because of the fact that I had spent quite a bit of time a number of years ago, but I had spent quite a bit of time working in quite a number of African countries. And so I had a lot of experience and exposure to, the environment of that Monica was probably operating in, what the street might look like, what the shop might look like. And I had also had a lot of cultural experience culturally, working with people from West Africa, East Africa, South Africa, Southern Africa. And so maybe I had a little bit less of a difficult time than probably some entrepreneurs have who haven't worked with those cultures and those kind of ways of interacting with people. But having said that, I also spend a lot of time interviewing other people who are interested in becoming a Grow Movement volunteer consultant. And oftentimes what I will tell them is it's really super important in those first 1, 2, 3 sessions that you have, that you are not diving right into business, that you are spending time getting to know your entrepreneur as a person. What's their family situation like? What are their aspirations, their dreams? What do they like to do? Asking about their family, where they're from. So you want to spend time in those first couple of sessions really getting to know the entrepreneur, and not just diving right into business, as I know in the States here at least we often do. We kind of get right to it, and that doesn't usually work very well. So I would say the biggest challenge that I had, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs have, is really just the technology, is getting internet connectivity on a regular basis and actually being able to have your Skype session. I know that the Grow Movement is doing some things now with putting client managers in place and making Grow Movement offices accessible to entrepreneurs so that they can leverage the technology in the Grow Movement's office. But I would say that to me is the biggest challenge that I had, and I know other folks have, is just actually being able to get the technology going so you can connect with the entrepreneur. For my engagement with Monica, we did have 12 sessions. And the Grow Movement actually has a project management system that they've developed, and we use this in the Uganda 600 project, and it was fantastic because you actually could have your session, track your session, and be reminded when your session was coming up, and then you could actually input into the project management system notes about what you talked about, what objectives were set for the next session. And you could use the project management system to kind of track and track yourself and track your activities and your discussions and keep yourself on track to completing the program. So it is a 12-week, or not 12-week, but a 12-session commitment that you make as a volunteer consultant. And those 12 sessions, they could take 6 months, they could take 9 months. It all really depends upon how often you're able to schedule your sessions and other things that are going on. To give you an example, in the case of Monica, we kind of had a little bit of a hiatus because of the Ugandan presidential elections, and that caused a lot of strife in certain areas of Uganda, and so we kind of, for I think it was maybe for about 6 to 8 weeks, we didn't have any sessions just because there's too many things going on in the country leading up to those elections. So things like that can happen, or I had worked with another entrepreneur before I worked with Monica, and there was a case where he had to take a bit of a leave because of a death in the family, and he had to go back to his home village for that. So sometimes things come up that make the whole program take a little bit longer. But I did do 12 sessions with Monica, and I'd say we probably finished in about maybe 10 or 11 months. It took us. Yeah, in working with Monica, we really did not leverage any technology tools really in any way. She, like a lot of the entrepreneurs that were involved in the Uganda 600 project, she has a very small business in a community outside of Kampala, as I mentioned, and she herself did not have access to a laptop or internet connectivity. She did have a smartphone, so a lot of our sessions were actually held with the client manager, who would actually bring his laptop and do the connection to the internet so that we could have our Skype session. So a lot of the activities that we organized for her business had to be organized in a very manual way. And so it would have been great if she could have had access to Excel, for example, for tracking her income and her expenses, but that really was just not a reality for her at this point in time. And so we just set up a very simple bookkeeping system in a notebook that she had. So a lot of the activities that we did together to identify what some of the business objectives were really a lot of mostly just asking questions and having her go back and think about certain things. At one point we were talking about marketing initiatives and how could we expand awareness of her business, and I provided her with a list of I think it was a list of like 100 different kind of creative, no cost, low cost ways of marketing and creating awareness and doing promotion. And she reviewed that and came up with, a handful of the activities that she thought would work for her business. So it was a lot of that sort of kind of back and forth discussion about roles and what would work and what wouldn't work in her particular environment. But we didn't really use any sort of technology tools outside of the Skype sessions and WhatsApp. WhatsApp is also a really super useful tool for dealing with entrepreneurs in developing countries, because it's super easy to use and it's free and you can do voice and exchange documents and do all sorts of things. That would definitely be a more preferable way of communicating back and forth than trying to use email. We didn't use email really at all. Yeah, I don't think having a cultural understanding of that particular country that your client works in. Let me take that back. I don't think that having a cultural understanding of the environment in which your client is working is essential. I think that it is beneficial if you have spent some time either traveling outside of your home environment, wherever that may be, and or having interactions and relationships and communication with people from other countries, I believe is probably the most important thing. And I think that a lot of the people that are drawn to even apply as a volunteer consultant to the Grove movement tend to kind of fall in that category. So they're sort of naturally self-selecting themselves. But I think having a idea of just other, not having an idea, but having an awareness of other cultures and sensitivity to other cultures is key. But the most important thing that I think is key for a successful volunteer consultant is patience, because oftentimes, especially I know here in the U.S., we have expectations of a lot happening and being accomplished in a very short amount of time, and you kind of have to step back from those expectations and to be patient around what you can accomplish and how long it might take to accomplish that, and being sensitive and aware that other business owners' environment can be very different than our own. And if you have an understanding of that and a willingness to be patient in working with the entrepreneur, then I think you'll find it a super rewarding and enriching experience, and probably more rewarding and enriching for you as the volunteer consultant than maybe even for the client, in terms of getting to know someone from a very different culture and helping them succeed in a way that they probably would not be able to without your mentoring and coaching and advice. From my perspective, or from my side of things, I wouldn't say I got anything out of it professionally, in terms of contributing to, well, you know what, let me take that back. Let me start all over again with that. So, I would say that professionally, if I think back about when I left working in African development, which was quite a number of years ago, and got into technology marketing, I actually got into technology marketing because I wanted to develop some additional skills and experiences that I could bring back to the work, working with businesses and individuals in Africa. And for one reason or another, I didn't do that, and I ended up just continuing on in my career in technology marketing. And so I guess some part of me thought, at some point in the future, it would be awesome to be able to marry those two aspects of my background and my career. And while at the current time I'm not seeing benefits to my current professional life, I could see at some point in the future going back to doing the kind of work that I used to do. And if I do that, then yeah, the experience at the Grow Movement would be super beneficial, because it's helping me keep a more up to date on kind of what's going on in some of the these communities in Africa, where you do have a lot of emphasis now on startups and on entrepreneurs in a way that certainly wasn't happening 25 years ago when I was working in Africa. But more than anything, it's just I do this because it's a way of giving back, and a way of staying connected with other cultures and other environments and other realities, which often kind of puts a check on our own lives in our own environment. Yeah, that's a really great question. It is something that it did happen with both of the entrepreneurs that I've worked with so far with the Grow Movement, where there was a little bit, I think, maybe of an expectation that there was going to be some sort of financial contribution, but that it definitely is not what the Grow Movement is about. It's really about mentoring and coaching. I think the thing that was the most challenging was not wanting to do for the entrepreneur, to focus more on the mentoring and the coaching and the teaching versus I'm going to do it for you. And that probably is the thing that is the most challenging, because you can do it, whatever it is, if it's designing a flyer or building a spreadsheet or what have you, is trying to not focus too much on actually doing for the entrepreneur, but helping them do for themselves. I think that maybe some folks who are sitting on the fence may possibly be overestimating the amount of time that you have to dedicate to this. I think if you are an MBA student or have an MBA degree, that you have a tremendous amount of knowledge and experience just by going through that MBA program, outside of even any professional experience that you have, that you probably you really won't have to spend a lot of time preparing for your sessions. And so it's 12 sessions. Each session is supposed to be an hour. Sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more, depending upon how well the technology is working that day. And then, maybe you'll spend, 30 minutes, maybe sometimes an hour in addition to that to support each session. So if you take that over a 6 to 9 month period of time, it really isn't that much of a time commitment. And you probably, as I said, you probably also already have a lot of the knowledge and experience that you need. So it's not like you're going to have to go out and learn things in order to support the entrepreneur. It's probably already stuff you know. So it's really leveraging your experience and your knowledge that you already have. Yes, and I came up with Give Back and Grow Movement.